I have, as some of you know, have been talking for some time about this because of with Dr. John Mack. John and I were at Harvard trying to set up this new paradigm institute, this worldview institute, to try to talk about the fact that people who are coming at this issue of extraterrestrial intelligence and UFO phenomenon, et cetera, people tend to prism the whole experience through their own lenses of their worldview. And so therefore, the people who are authoritarians or militarists, they view them as this extraordinary threat. People who are sort of utopianists view them as sort of the George Adamski thing. They've all come from outer space to help us save ourselves from ourselves, and the scientific logical positivists are viewing them as this strange conundrum that's sort of somewhere between the borderline of the material realm and this other realm, whatever it is. So I've been just making myself available over this time since 1977, when I served as special counsel to Jimmy Carter's investigation of the UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence with Marcia Smith at the Congressional Research Service, and have been fortunate that because I don't know, maybe one of the few lawyers that pays as much attention to this as I do, I keep getting invited by people to represent them in different contexts, when they're afraid they're going to get threatened or their security clearance is going to get yanked away or whatever it is. And so I've been invited. I have to appear in front of the Inspector General of the Defense Department on Wednesday in Washington, over by Zoom now, representing Lou Elizondo. Because he has filed an Inspector General complaint against the Department of Defense for holding back information about the UFO phenomenon. So I've been leaning on Lou and Chris Mellon to say in public, what I know in private, and talking with them in representing Lou. Well, they didn't do that today. On 60 Minutes, they did the same old shuffle of, who knows what they are, even to the point where, every third of the way through the show, at every single point, somebody would come on and say, they could be an awful threat. They could be who knows? They could be from China, and Marco Rubio, if they're from China or something, we should know about that. And so that whole thing is going on, as we all know, at a very low level of consciousness about this entire phenomenon. I mean, they're way below the horizon on this discussion. But it is certainly something like Melinda, when you said, what do you think? Did he hit a home run? I was saying it's more like a drag bunt. We've got a runner on first base finally. We got somebody on first base, but there's nobody's getting ready to drive him in. So with this idea of what are they all doing? What is it they're up to? What is the agenda that's going on now? We know perfectly well that when guys like Hal Puthoff and Kit Green and the other folks in Jim Simovan, the people that are working at the To the Stars Academy, perfectly well. I've said it 1,000 times, they're clearly choreographing some type of, limited modified hangout, just like with Nixon, in the Watergate burglary, he was trying to figure out, let's give him a little something, but don't tell him what's really going on here. So what I'm doing is I'm behind the scenes basically with them, trying to persuade them to come forward and really lay it down, get into a major dialectical confrontation with the Defense Department. So what we've done is we've expanded the Inspector General investigation that Lou has initiated against them because he thought they were going to try to stop them from releasing the 60 Minutes thing, right? And so that we put together a complaint in the Inspector General's office, going after them for potentially retaliating against him. And then what we've done is we've expanded it into this other more general investigation to try to get the Defense Department's the Inspector General's office to come forward with what it is they really know about the UFO phenomenon. It's a whole separate Inspector General investigation. And so we've got one going on a whistleblower, if they think he's saying things that he shouldn't be saying. And then we've got one for retaliation, which is a separate division of the Inspector General's office, in case they're retaliating against him for saying something that he's perfectly authorized to say. And then we've got the other one going, a whole Inspector General's investigation of, is there something that the Defense Department is doing that's illegal by concealing all this information? So there's 3 major Inspector General investigations going right now. In addition to this bizarre report, I've never changed my position. I think that we should talk about this completely and get everybody involved in talking about it. It's the most important issue that I've ever seen in the public issue area, and I've seen a few, as you know. But this is the most important one of them all. And so, you know, now I'm talking to guys. For example, we were talking with a fellow, a Central Intelligence Agency guy, who was in a division which is electronic intelligence of you know, monitoring all kinds of electronic signals in and around the planet. You know, and I mean, this guy's a full-time Central Intelligence Agency guy, and he says, well, of course, we know that the stuff that happened at Roswell, that really did happen. You know, he's just sort of talking about it as sort of off the cuff. He says, of course, that all happened. Like, you know, and I figure that's progress. You know, when you're getting people from inside the CIA sitting right there telling you, yes, sure, that happened, of course. It was because of Don's work, you know, among others, making it just kind of irrefutable. And so that they finally give in when it becomes completely irrefutable. They'll acknowledge that it's true. But it's not clear to me yet exactly what it is or why it is that this drumbeat has started here. This whole kind of acceleration of talking about this issue, acknowledging that it's, quote, real. But I clearly don't go as far as Stephen Greer does of saying, well, they're obviously getting set to, you know, undertake some kind of a false flag operation, and so they're trying to, you know, beat the drums about this terrible threat. I don't think that's what's going on.
Don't know that it's, you know, a false flag potentially, but it certainly gives the military industrial complex ammo for getting more funding. You know, anywhere there's a potential threat, you know, that gives them an excuse to raise money and get public support for that.
Exactly. I saw this all along. Like Grant said, it's been planned out all along. And Dan, I'm sure you can address it even more. But I just kept seeing it as the big money grab, you know. You know, and once I think Grant, you brought this up recently in an interview or something where you were quoting me, quoting Jim Semivan, when I said, is there anything I could ever say that would blow this for you guys? And he said, yeah, don't blow the money, you know, like, you know, don't stop the money from coming. So
can we get Danny Sheehan to talk about
safe, you know.
I was surprised when Danny talked about the fact that Lou Elizondo and Mellon don't buy into the threat. I was kind of surprised.
Oh yeah,
can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, it was interesting how it first started. It first started that Lou reached out to me because he was pissed off that they were saying that, look, this Lou Elizondo never had anything to do with the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Project, and besides, no such project ever really existed. You know, that was their first kind of response. All this stuff about us investigating UFOs, that's not true. That had nothing to do with UFOs. And he was really pissed off about that. And he was taking the position that, well, that's calling me a liar, you know, because I've gone forward with the To the Stars Academy, and I've talked about my position. So they're basically calling me a liar. And so I said to him, look, if that's the worst that happens, you ought to be lucky. You know, it was like, I remember Oliver Stone said to me that he had me come to his home in Hollywood and look at the original editor's cut of the JFK story. And I was downstairs in his home waiting for him to come. We were going to watch this together. And he came in, he was all pissed off because Newsweek had a great big front cover that said, Oliver Stone's JFK's, Oliver Stone's JFK, the twisted truth of JFK. And he said, look at these people, they're basically calling me a liar. And I said, what the fuck did you expect? I said, you accused everybody and their brother of killing the president. I said, what do you expect him to say? And so Lou was all upset. Oh, these people are calling me a liar. I said, what the fuck? They're all fucking liars. They've been lying for like 75 years. Why are you surprised? So this is how it started. And then, so I said, she said, what it is you want to say? What is it you want to say? Because you're going around pretending this is a threat isn't what you want to be saying. And he said, well, that's true. He said, because here's how he first came across it. When he was as the executive director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, he said the first thing he noticed is that none of the high-ranking military seemed to be acting like this was a threat of any kind. Oh yeah, it turned off our nuclear warheads, at the Minuteman sites, and it's been buzzing around our aircraft, but none of them are treating it like it's a threat. And he says, so he was kind of puzzled by that, because his normal instincts as a security officer, basically his hair was on fire to start with. But, oh shit, they're turning off our nuclear missiles. Oh, they're buzzing around our aircraft carriers. And he said, but every time he was talking about it, they was all, well, yeah, there they are again, And so he said, they clearly do not view this as a threat. And so I said to him, well, why do you think they think it's not a threat? And he said, well, because obviously the kind of technology that they've got, if they wanted to be a threat, they could be a serious threat. They can turn off our nuclear weapons. They can accelerate the speed of light, like right in front of us. He says, so obviously, there's nothing we can do to touch them. He says, so obviously, if they were going to be a threat, then they would have already really done something. So he says, so that too. So both the fact that the high-level military people are treating them like they're not a threat, and the fact is that if they were going to be a threat, they would have already done something. So he said, so they're not really a threat. So I said, well, he was still at the To the Stars Academy, right? I said, well, why do you guys keep on saying it? Why do you guys at the To the Stars Academy, every time anybody turns a camera on you, you start talking about them being a threat? And he said, well, it's because, that's how you can get people's attention. We can get people's attention because they're all worried about it being a threat. And I said, yeah, look, you go down that road, and you're going to get down that road too far, and you aren't going to be able to get off that road. You keep on flogging that dog, and you're going to get caught, on that. I said, so you got to stop that. You got to back up out of that and stop pretending this is a threat. And so that he started talking with the other people inside the To the Stars Academy, and with Chris Mellon. And Chris and he both started getting distressed over the fact that the To the Stars Academy people kept on telling them that they had to be presenting it like it's a potential threat, because they were trying to get Congress to have an investigation about it. And he said the way to get the Congress to have an investigation about it is to approach it like a threat, because the guys, the senators and Congress people are just like Pavlov's dog. You ring the bell at them, to raise funds, and they'll talk about a threat, whether it's the Russians or the Chinese. But Lou said, we know it's not the Russians or the Chinese. We know everything they've got. We've been spying on them. We know everything they've got. They don't got that. And so what Ike was driving with him is saying, look at, well, have they briefed you in on what we've got? And he said, I think so, which told me right at the beginning, I don't think they have. I don't think they briefed him in on what it is we've really got. And I've seen all kinds of stuff now about what we got, which shocked the shit out of me. I didn't know they've got an aircraft. I was talking to Mark about. They got an aircraft that goes Mach 12. They've got an aircraft that goes Mach 12, and they showed me a picture of it, and it's got this bizarre technology where when I was talking with Mark, it starts going supersonic, and it's got this kind of shock waves all around it, and then they start these tubes come out of the top of it and start pumping some kind of a weird rare gas into their shock waves, and it causes explosions. which would propel the plane. And the thing goes at Mach 12, and it's got 120 nuclear tubes with the nuclear warheads, and they can deliver. Catch this: they can deliver 120 nuclear bombs across the surface of Russia in 2 minutes. At Mach 12, just across all the whole fucking place.
What the heck? That's what I'm going to say to that. What the heck?
Yeah. And so, I mean, and that's got nothing to do with the UFO technology. That's some technology that they figured out. And it wasn't using the UFO technology. And so I said, well, okay, that's interesting. So what do they got with UFO technology? How well has that thing been developed? So I've now got the list of names of the people that have been working on it, and I'm going to find them out.
Dan, we discussed this earlier in this before you came on about it going into private hands, and that those absolutely are aerospace companies and corporate companies.
It's all S-Force, Ben Rich. It's all that old story that you and I have spent 100 hours talking about with Randy.
Yes.
So that's this, and I don't get the sense that Lou has been briefed in on that, and so that he genuinely, he's totally convinced it's not Russian, and he's totally convinced it's not Chinese, and he thinks that we don't have jack shit, really, and I know we do, and so I'm still in the process of trying to get him briefed in on what we really got, but it ain't this. Can
I just ask something real quick? Sorry to interrupt you. Are you actually saying that you're briefing Lou Elizondo on what the United States military has in its arsenal?
No, I was trying to find out from him whether he knew. I happen to have known. I was just trying to get him to tell me what it is he knew, about what this is. And it was clear to me he didn't know about these things. And so that what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to. It's a simple thing. I am trying to get Lou and Chris and other people. I haven't gotten to talk to Simivan yet, and I haven't talked to Hal Putoff.
Give me the questions, Dan. I'll run them by him.
Yeah, well, it's the first question to ask him is it true that you were the head of covert operations stateside? Because that's a criminal offense. That's a criminal offense, and you ought to be in fucking prison. I mean, if that's who we want.
I have every reason to believe the answer to that is yes.
Yeah. So you're in trouble right from the very beginning when you're talking with him about this stuff. So I'm anticipating that I'll get a call sooner or later, from him, eventually from Hal Putoff, and eventually from Kit Green and the people. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to stay completely honest, completely forthright. I know that you can't trust anybody in the CIA, no matter what anybody says. There's no such thing as a former CIA person. Just like there's no such thing as a former Marine. If you ever say, "Oh, you're a former Marine," they will say to you instantly, "There's no such thing as a former Marine. Semper Fi." And the same thing is true of the CIA person. And and so the question that you were, one of the guys was raising is that the fact is there's another agenda. I guess it was Dave. There's another agenda here. There's no doubt at all that there's another agenda. The question is, whose agenda is it? Because it ain't Lou's and it isn't Chris's. And I believe that somebody inside the To the Stars Academy is involved in it. But I'm still not sure how far they've been briefed in on everything. I don't know yet.
Well, Dan, you go back to like the Wilson document and what it brings up, and that those guys back then when Eric Davis met with Wilson back then, they knew that stuff was going on then. And I think back to my friendship with Jack Houck, who was an early member of that group, and him telling me 30 years ago, he knew everything about this subject. So I think the core group, what we call in the UFO field, the aviary or the working group, that those guys know a lot more, an awful lot more. And some of them may be involved like Jack and others. I could name names, but I think they're much deeper involved. Even in my Mill Labs research, some of those people come up continually.
I think they know more. I think they know more, but I do not believe they are on the bigot list for the unacknowledged saps that are controlling the material.
Bob, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
There's only
That's
one
the
person that I think might cross the line there, but otherwise I might be akin to to agree with you there.
Yeah, that's the question. Who are the ones? Who are the ones that are up there? You know, that say I've got this list now of reasonable suspects that I'm working my way through, because it turns out Ben Rich was on the list. You know, and this is a list that was compiled when he was still alive, so he was one of them that was in there. And you remember now, Eric Davis is the one that told Rubio in the closed door session with the Senate Intelligence Committee that the people in my task force, the task force, the UAP task force now, the ONI, is that our people believe that these are off-world vehicles. I mean, that's what he said to him. That's what's lit up. That's what's lit up Rubio. You know, it's all of his pretense of bullshitting about, oh, he thinks they might be Russian. He knows perfectly well they're not Russian. You know, but the bottom line is that the people believe they're off-world vehicles. That's what they believe. But you can't get them to even utter the thing of extraterrestrial life or extraterrestrial beings. They won't say it, but they do believe they're off-world vehicles. You know, and who else is driving off-world vehicles? It's not
Dave,
us.
I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Daniel, I'm curious your opinion on this, and I'd mentioned this earlier in the conversation about 40 minutes ago. But for you, being so involved with this topic for so many years, why now? Why now is it all important that we get this information out when for 70 years we've had cover-ups?
Well, well, it depends on who the we is you're talking about, Dave, is that there's an agenda going here on the part of the people that are in possession of the highest levels of information about all of this. There's some kind of an agenda going on now, starting to accelerate releasing some of the information. You know, what they've released so far is they're real. You know, they're not swamp gas. They're not reflections of, you know, searchlights from lighthouses off the clouds. You know, they're saying, okay, these are real. These are vehicles. They're using the term vehicles. They're under intelligent control. They're saying all these things. That's a lot more, as we all know. It's a lot more than they ever acknowledged. You know, at least since that golden age of UFOs. You know, in the late 50s. You know, when they were actually talking about these things. But the fact of the matter is, there's some agenda going now to lift up some discourse about this thing. As I said, I don't think it's because they're getting set to stage some sort of, you know, false flag attack. I don't know what the reason is, but as I say, you have to be careful about getting attached to thinking there's some reason why, the specific reason they're doing it, because you won't find out the real reason. So I don't know what the real reason is why this is happening all of a sudden, but there's something going on right now. But I also am quite confident that, you know, in June, you're not going to have the people in the know cough it up to the Senate Intelligence Committee. You know, I mean, because that would remain secret for probably 24 hours. You know, whatever it is they told the Senate Intelligence Committee. You know, so that isn't going to happen. But I don't know whatever it is they're going to say, whatever portions of anything they're going to say is part of the agenda. So we have to get a look at what it is they say. Now, if in fact they just postpone it and get a continuance, that's going to make it perfectly clear that we're dealing with, you know, with Charlie Brown in the football. You know, it's just a little more luring you in and getting you all excited and then pulling the football away and having us all bumping into each other again. You know, so we'll see. But I have no great expectations about this particular report that's going to be coming in here in June.
I think all it's going to be told is things that's happened recently that we know there have been these incidents around ships and nuclear facilities and the stuff that happened in the 70 years before now, where they learned everything that has these super secret things. We're not going to get told any of it because they committed too many crimes and too many civilly liable things to let that stuff out.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I also wanted to throw in here too. I think all of us in the community have felt what we've seen on TV is a little lackluster, or is definitely held back. And we keep questioning, what is it going to take to get like extreme public outcry to get to the bottom of this? And Danny, I'll pose this to you, and maybe Mark, you can jump in as well. When are we going to get a domestic case, like an experiencer case that is acknowledged, that's not military? And will that be the catalyst to get public outcry? I'm a small town girl. It seems like nobody gets excited until it affects small town America. Are we going to see that kind of coverage, or is something going to come out to where it's going to hit small town mid-America?
No.
No.
I have an opinion
Right.
on that. I think potentially, yes. I think that if there were to be some extraordinary case of someone who's having a contact experience, who's willing to speak publicly about it and can demonstrate an ability to make contact on film, I think that could be compelling. And if it's presented in a way that's interesting, that becomes a human interest story, both from the human perspective, but also on this bigger question about who are they? And if it can be shown that bilateral contact can be made, and that there's information in this bilateral contact coming back, that could be very interesting, and go viral, so to speak. And I do think that there's something special about a story like this, that it could change the dynamics quite a bit. Because of course, if there were somebody who, fit the bill, the question then becomes, is this somebody who's been, blessed or, picked as a emissary for representing them? Because clearly the government isn't stepping up and fulfilling that role. So who's going to fill that role? And I think it will require somebody or a small group of people who are working together, who have proven that they've established contact and have gotten messages and can begin sharing these messages with the public. I think that could spin this in an interesting way that could change the game.
Well, all of which, of course, is derivative of the big elephant in the living room, and that is the ET beings themselves. Because it's perfectly obvious, if they wanted to have it revealed, they could do it, and they don't. And they're engaged in some other process that's going on here. And so the key for us to do is to figure out what that process is, not spend so much of our time worrying about what the Defense Department's doing or what the CIA is doing or what some president is going to do when they get in there. The question is, what are the ET people going to be doing? What type of coordination do they have? If there's more than one planetary system that have their people coming here, what's their level of arrangement with each other? What are the protocols that they're actually pursuing? We need to know that. And that's why the real answer to this is citizen diplomacy. Is there,
not to cut you off, but you brought up protocols with the government and the military. Now that we're seeing this in the limelight and they're told they can report this without endangering their careers. Yeah. Is there some sort of first contact initiative going on? Is there any sort of training when we do interact with these things? Is it like, flash the lights like in Close Encounters and play the music? Like,
well, it doesn't appear yet. I just had a long conversation with the father of someone who's at the U.S. Air Force Academy, because I was kind of behind the scenes, kind of advising this person to, when they arrived at the Air Force Academy, to start talking about this, to say, look, we're the Air Force officers of the future. How about briefing us in on what we're supposed to be doing here? What kind of protocols we're going to? And the Air Force Academy has got in the booklet that they hand out to the cadets when they first arrive. They've got a form for reporting UFO sightings, but they aren't talking about it. It's just there. And so what I do is I keep handing off information to this person to confront their professors and stuff at the Air Force Academy to say, hey, how about this or how about that? So we've got all kind of channels open up, but I think they all pale in the face of the specific question of what the ET people themselves want to do here. Because whatever it is they want to do, they're calling the shots here. I mean, even what Mark was talking about is some team or some individual that could get sort of blessed to be kind of an emissary. That's still up to them to decide whether they want to do that. So we need to find out what it is they want and what it is they want us to do. And is it true that we among us who are utopians will say, oh, obviously they're waiting for us all to rise in our level of consciousness so that we are at the right vibrational frequency, so that we're in sympathetic resonance with their vibrational frequency. And then we'll have merited, citizenship in the Galactic Federation. We can go all on and on, right? But that's all just guesswork. That's through our prism as utopianists. So that what we've got to do is we got to find out what it is that they're up to. How many of them are there? What type of coordination do they have among themselves? Are any of them more rogue than the others? Are there good ones and not so good ones? We need to find this out. I spend my 50 years I've spent doing investigations, of things that people consider to be a conspiracy, whether it's the people who killed Karen Silkwood, or how do you shut down the nuclear power plants, or how do you find out who's, supplying weapons to the Contras, who's smuggling cocaine into the United States to buy weapons. This is what we do, and so I'm turning my attention to this issue. And I'm trying to figure out, it's not so much trying to figure out who the people are that are in charge in the secret realms here. It's the ET people. It's the ET people that are in charge of this thing. So what we have to do is open up a line of communication, just like I was talking with Mark earlier, just like when I was at Jesuit headquarters and was general counsel with the Jesuit office, we reached out to Gorbachev. Gorbachev was just the Secretary of Agriculture, under Andropov. And we had direct face-to-face meetings with him to start negotiating about disassembling the nuclear warheads. That's how perestroika and glasnost came about. It's through citizen diplomacy. And so that's how we have to do it. I think we've got to, that's why the CE5 thing is so important, is actually establishing direct communication with the extraterrestrial beings, and in opening our heart to them and saying, look at, we're not totally dumb and naive. Don't think we're so stupid that we don't merit any kind of responsible communications from you. Let's have an intelligent conversation. There's an element within our human family. We're perfectly cognizant of the shortcomings of our human family. We're flawed ourselves. But we want to have this conversation. So let's have the conversation. Tell us what you're up to. Tell us what
I think that's wonderful.
That's the way we got to do it.
It often makes me wonder too, if maybe there needs to be some sort of extension on humanity's behalf, not just a curiosity, but I often wonder, do we need to give them some sort of protection to be able to acknowledge and start this conversation? Do we need to put it down on a piece of paper and announce it to the galaxy? If you make contact, we will not shoot at you and we will let you leave the planet. I don't know.
They know pretty much. Don't underestimate the people. They have a pretty good idea what we're up to.
Hang on, Dan and all. It looked earlier. Jeff, did you have your hand up earlier? And same with Cheryl. Both of you. I thought
Grant too.
Oh, Grant. Okay.
So
Jeff, I'll start with you.
Please.
Okay.
Grant, please go.
But Jeff, if you had a question, don't let us forget you. Okay.
My question is actually maybe the question Jeff's going to ask, because Jeff, before you came on, Danny, they were talking about the Inspector General able to shuffle stuff under the table and not being up and level with some cases. So you're up against the Inspector General. You've been up against Harvard University and Oliver North and all these guys. You know all the game. What's your prospect? Do you think you can keep the Inspector General on course? And do you have any ability to force the issue and make him do the job the way he's supposed to do it?
I hope. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to, with the fellow that we're dealing with is named Stephen Johnson. Dr. Stephen Johnson. He is the director of whistleblower and retaliation investigations for the Inspector General. And then there's this other woman that is in charge of recrimination, which is some sort of a different category. And then there's a third one I haven't gotten to talk to yet, that's in charge of this whole general investigation inside the DoD about what they know about UFOs and what are the protocols that are being used to conceal it, and are they legal? You know, there's 3 different investigations going on. What I'm assuming that what I end up having to do is talk to the Inspector General himself, you know, because there are these other lieutenants that are having jurisdiction here. But what we've got to do is we've got to get the pressure on Susan Go, at least. She's the DoD person who's blocking the information. She's the one putting out all these lies about, you know, there's no such thing as ATIP, and, you know, oh, we aren't doing this anymore, you know, that thing. So what I've got to do is find out who I'm dealing with in the Inspector General's office. You know, that I've never met a government lawyer that I trusted. You know, because they've got this other agenda, as you were talking about. You know, they are people under authority, and they've got instructions, and they view themselves as being responsible for protecting the institution itself. And as I think it was Dave was saying, anybody who thinks that they're actually engaged in trying to protect the public interest ought to have their head examined. You know, so that, you know, that's what John Mack used to say. You know, but the bottom line is, I've got to try to find out who these people are, how honest they are, how seriously they take their job. You know, how fascinated are they going to become about this subject? I mean, any human being that has a heartbeat, you know, basically when this information starts getting in front of them, they start saying, "Oh shit, you know, here I am. I'm like I'm in a movie here. Like, you know, here this is the big issue, and all of a sudden it's come onto my table. You know, what am I going to do about this? You know, am I going to just, salute and the flag and, you know, walk, at attention in front of whoever's telling me what to do? Or am I going to actually have a little bit of leeway here to try to find out what's really going on? Am I going to exercise whatever degree of discretion I've got to try to do something that, you know, will merit my respect with my grandchildren? You know, so I have to find this out. I don't know yet, but I'm gonna know Wednesday, because I'm gonna get to talk with Stephen Johnson and find out what he's about. And then I'm gonna get to talk to the other IG. So I'll know by the end of the month, you know, some of what we're dealing with here.
You think this is going to open the doorway at all, sir, to like some of the other FOIA, you know, like for instance, Lou's cohort there, Sean Cahill, who was going to be on here tonight, actually said just the other day, tweeted, "It's been 600 days since we discovered that they were diverting UAP FOIA requests when Lou and those guys put it." So like, are this going to open the doorway? Because we know like guys like John Greenwald have a paper trail 100 miles long of the same thing happened for the last 30 years.
Yeah. No, what's more shocking is the fact that they release anything at all through FOIA. You know, I mean, that Richard Dolan has gotten lots and lots of stuff through his FOIA actions, you know, and letters and everything. And so that they obviously view the FOIA process as some portion of whatever that agenda is they've got, of kind of feathering out little pieces of information. But, you know, the Freedom of Information Act has got 22 specific exceptions. You know, for example, in the letter they sent back to us when we filed the IG complaint for Lou, they sent us back this Privacy Act thing that says, you know, that even the things that aren't covered by national security are covered by the Privacy Act. And so anybody who's involved in this process, you know, is not supposed to tell anybody about it. Fuck you. You know, who do you think you're talking to here? You know, I mean, that's the same thing they said at Harvard University. Well, no, this is all very private. Fuck you at private. You know, I mean, you're sticking it up poor John's butt here, and he's supposed to, well, you know, bend over and hold his ankles. I said, you know, fuck you guys. You know, we're going to tell people what's going on. You know, so, you know, we'll tell you the truth. We'll bring witnesses in. We'll do all this kind of stuff. But, you know, I mean, who the hell do you think you're talking to here? You know, I mean, so that's the position we have to take with them without being overly insulting. You know, but which may not be that easy. You know, but we'll see what's going to happen. I always start out assuming that, you know, that they're good people and they've gotten themselves into this position, and they may be a little bit toady because they're inside an institution like that. But, you know, we'll see what's going to happen here. we'll see what's going
I
to
was
happen.
just laughing then because I was thinking, yeah, Dan, you might want to dial back.
Yeah. No, I know.
Scolding them, yeah.
They're probably expecting something.
Jeff, did he answer your question, or did you
He
have anything
did.
else?
I actually was going to ask, so do you have anything that you'd like to say working with, like on the disclosure project versus now, maybe lessons you've learned, things you're going to avoid, things you might never bring up again, that type of thing?
No. I can still never figure out to this day why Marcia Smith is so pissed off, from the way back in 1977 when we were working on these reports for Jimmy Carter. She just refuses to talk to anybody about anything. Like she pretends like she was never even involved in any of that stuff. I think she's overdone, whatever she thinks is the secret nature of the investigation we were supposed to be doing. And then she got offended at the fact that anybody would talk about it at all. But
yes, I actually wrote her a letter when I was living in Washington, and she never replied.
Oh no, complete black hole with Marcia. She will not talk to anybody. If you walk into her office and try to start talking to her, she'll get right up and walk out of the office. Like as if she never. Well, after she ran the investigation for the Carter administration she was the head of the Science and Technology Division of the Congressional Research Service for the Library of Congress. That's where she was. But because she was so secretive about what it is that we were all doing together, the Reagan administration made her the head of the Citizens Advisory Commission on U.S. space policy. So she saw that she's rewarded for just being completely secretive about this stuff. And needs to say I wasn't, and so she's really upset about that. I can tell, but the fact is she just gets up and walks out of the room if anybody even asks her about any of this stuff at all. And I don't know. I mean, I could have been more diplomatic about it, about telling everybody about whatever I knew about this stuff. Like the stuff. It was under her aegis that I got to see the classified sections of Project Blue Book. I mean, I told everybody as fast as I could what I'd seen. Holy shit! Look what I saw. So I mean, and they know that's going to be the way I am. I'm not into any big secret stuff. Bob Fink was the investigator for Bella Abzug. Bella was the congresswoman from New York that was the chairperson of the Individual Rights Subcommittee of the House Judiciary Committee when they were doing the Church Committee investigations of the CIA, and they had the House side was called the Pike Committee under Otis Pike. And Bob Fink got seconded by Bella Abzug to be one of the investigators for that. And he said to me, Danny, don't ever take a security oath. He said, look, I know you can find out anything that you would be able to find out with a security clearance. You can find it out anyhow. So don't ever take a security clearance. And then they can never say that you violated your security clearance. So I'm never going to take a security clearance on anything. They could offer to sit me down with an ET to interview them, and I'm not going to take a security oath, So, I'll tell people whatever I know.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Does anybody else have a question for either Dan or Mark or anyone else on the panel for that matter?
Great.
I have one. In terms of, Danny, I heard you talking about the importance of the nuclear weapons. Can you talk about that and the sort of the message coming from the ET and what they know about that?
Oh yeah. It's the two main messages every time. You talk to Barbara Lamb, you talk to anybody, John Mack, anybody who's had all kinds of interviews of the contactees. And the thing that they talk about is you've got to get rid of the nuclear weapons. You've got to get rid of the nuclear weapons. You can't have these nuclear weapons. You detonate these things and it's having repercussions all throughout the galaxy. You got to stop doing this. And also you got to stop what they call polluting your planet. You're polluting your planet. It's going to destroy the ecological system of your planet. These are the two things over and over and over again. And that's why I said when I ended up, it was back in 1994, John and I were going to be talking at the MUFON conference down in Orange County. It turned out that everybody was there. Stanton Friedman was there, and Bud Hopkins was there, and Lyndon Moulton Howe was there, and Stephen Greer was there. A whole bunch of people that were, and so we're all in the green room together, right? And so I stood up and I said, "Holy shit! Look at here, we're all in one place." I said, "This is really interesting." I said, "Look at what that all the work that I've ever done out in the regular world is you have to build coalitions. You have to get people who have a common interest with you. And the problem with the UFO movement is it's all by itself. It's this kind of thing that's completely sui generis, and it doesn't have connections to anybody else. You got to reach out and establish connections with the anti-nuclear weapons people and with the environmental people that are trying to stop climate change. And I was talking about this back in 1994. That's what we have to do. These two issues that the ET people keep talking about over and over and over again, we've got to get people in the environmental movement, in this huge movement now to try to stop global climate change, to understand. That's why I think that the Ariel movie that's going to be coming out, that Randy's going to be doing with the Ariel movie is going to be really, really important, because all the people that look at those little kids and see all the pictures that they drew about what they were being told by the ETs.
Right.
Nobody's
James's movie,
nobody's going to doubt that. Everybody's going to say,
Phenomenon, James Fox's movie.
Well,
Hey,
now, Dan,
everybody, let me
Cheryl's
butt in
letting
real
us know
quick,
she has to get going.
Yeah, Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and good luck on Coast to Coast tonight. I think we'll be jumping off of here to jump on and listen to you.
Everybody out there listening, listen to Coast tonight. Cheryl Costa is the guest, and so we're going to be there talking about her new book. Yay! Hold up your new book. You got one there? Hold it up. Cheryl and her part. Oh, no, okay, that's all right. But that's all right. Everybody listening to Coast, Cheryl's going to talk all about her book. Thank you, Cheryl, for being with us.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Karen.
I have a question, a comment for that. So recently, Dave Scott and I, on the Science Bob segment on his radio show, interviewed Jim Goodall, the SR-71 fame.
Yep,
so Jim made an astounding statement, and there may be some implication, or you may have some indication whether or not his statement was full of crap or whether it's true, because it has massive implications. He was regularly connected and involved with the Donald Trump administration and campaign. And he came on the show and told us that after Lou Dobbs and Don Jr. talked to Donald, he declassified the UFO stuff. And everything kind of went quiet for a while. And then I think, so the thing that I was thinking about, if that happened, let's suppose it happened, what would they do? They would go into a delaying action, hoping that when Biden got sworn into office, he would undo it. So you, of all people, would know how to go about finding out if that happened and what the implications are. Well, because that would open the door.
I'll talk to Jim. I just saw Jim 2 weekends ago, and he didn't say anything like that to me. I was talking to him about all this stuff. He never said a word to me about that.
Yeah, I'm just hearing what he said on the show, and it would really be interesting.
Well, I'll ask him.
If it were true. Good.
I've got his cell phone, and I'll call him and see what he's talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting.
One thing I'd like to point out, that there was one thing in the program tonight on 60 Minutes that surprised me. It was a little piece, the young pilot who was interviewed, and he's on the East Coast. He made a statement that for the past 2 years, I believe, that they see these things daily.
Yeah.
And I have not.
Lieutenant Graves.
Okay.
Graves,
My question is, has anybody tried reaching out to these vehicles if they're there so persistently to communicate with them?
Well,
C5's hard at 400 miles an hour.
Oh, no, but you can use a radio.
Sorry, I'm just
Right.
So stick a sign in your window.
Yeah. No, Mark, but that was the point I was trying to make. Is there some sort of first contact protocol when they do interact with these things in the air, other than just sending everybody on high alert and trying to record data? Do you pull out Greer's C5 app and start playing the tones like as the jet flies by?
My guess is with the military, the answer is no.
Right.
Well, I would not assume that. If I had been interviewing those pilots, I would ask these kind of questions, right? I mean, it seems obvious, self-evident that this is the first thing that you would try to do if these were persistent encounters. And
Right.
no one
But
mentions
what
that.
frequency will you dial up on your transmitter and transmit on?
These are
Hey,
frequency
though, it might be
hard to
just
know.
as
It's not hard to know which
144.1.
channel they're on.
These are
that could
frequency
be
hopping
something
radios.
just as simple, though. That could be just something as simple as thinking happy thoughts, though.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm
Consciousness.
not here
Yeah,
to
that
hurt
makes
you.
more sense.
I was just
sending
gonna
out
say,
That makes-
Nicole, it's
that makes more
consciousness.
sense.
Grant,
As you
I
have a
know
bunch
it's
of
all about
warheads under your
consciousness.
arms.
Yeah, right.
That's okay.
This is the frequency you
Oh,
use.
there we go. Yeah, yeah.
All right, there it is.
The military radios don't use a single frequency.
Mark,
They're frequency
tell-
hopping. They're
Oh,
millions of.
they can switch to that frequency.
They're not
Yeah,
supposed to have cell phones in the cockpits either. So
You know, I have a question. I mean, I'm not to be a. Oh my God, I'm such a heel. Do you know that
Go for it, Jeff.
Tyler Rogoway ran an article 3 days ago that goes right along with what Graves said. He said that the pilots are reporting enemy drones and observation simple technology every single day in the Atlantic, and it's being disguised as UFOs, and we don't know why. And I know Tyler Rogoway is pretty accurate most times, even though he is a military correspondent on tech and stuff. But I think the coincidence there is pretty interesting. If you're seeing UFOs every single day nonstop, I tend to believe they're not UFOs. I'm an experiencer myself. I know I try to compare it to myself, but the idea there's so many UFOs over the ocean, they're spread out across the entirety of all training.
No, I think it makes sense.
Where we know the military is spying in those areas to see what our military is doing. It's
Jeff,
They're
I need to
not
take you on my UFO sighting tour here in
Linda.
Sedona, where you realized we see 40 or 50 UFOs every night, things that stop, turn, change direction, fly in formations. Mark's seen it with me. Anyone who's done.
I have no doubt that there is some really impressive stuff in the sky. I am a black triangle witness myself, up close, right over our head, my mother and I. But the stuff they're reporting matches.
Seen it, and they're not all drones, because drones, and they're not drones.
That's right. They're not drones.
Hang on, it froze up for a
The
minute.
vast majority of them are not drones, because that would be very unpractical for the Chinese or the Russians to send out.
Yeah.
They're most likely things that are filled with a gas, and they're floating with something.
If the UFOs are coming over Sedona that much and coming over my unimportant little tour, then obviously that they would be coming over the military, because they're concerned, particularly since a lot of those ships they're coming over have nuclear weapons on them and have nuclear propulsion systems. I can see why they might have an interest in that, and they're checking them out constantly. I don't have any problem with that.
Okay,
I
so
just-
I want to fire back in one slightly different direction. All of the
Okay.
2019 stuff that recently got reported was over destroyers that have neither nuclear weapons
all right.
on them when they're training, and they're not nuclear powered. So nuclear had nothing to do with that site.
Okay.
And again, I just want to say that I am fully aware the phenomenon is real. Whether you guys want to believe it's one phenomenon or multiple different things out there, conscious agents, whatever it is, I know it's real. But the idea that they're spotted so easily and so frequently, and we're presented with essentially nothing. 2017 didn't change anything for me or anyone I know. I don't know. I don't get I don't know. I don't.
But
Seeing them
Jeff,
every
my
single day
point was-
nonstop seems outrageous to me.
Wait,
It
hang
seems
on,
outrageous.
Jeff. My point is, we see them every night on my tour. The military could be seeing them every day too. That was my point.
Can I ask a question of Danny? Danny, you've had interactions with Gorbachev. You've been in this field a long time. What people always talk about the evil Russians and the Chinese. Do you have any idea how they're dealing with this problem in Russia or China?
That it was, as I said, that the first time I had a private conversation with Gorbachev, that I asked him about it, and what he did is he just took out a little notepad out of his pocket and he wrote down a telephone number and handed it to me, and so I went and called up the number, and it was a personal friend of his in Russia, and he was the editor of the only Hebrew language newspaper in Russia. And he laughed when I called him. And I said, you know, the McCall gave me this number and said I should call you because I asked him about the UFO. Then he told me the story about this big UFO incident that happened outside of Moscow a number of years earlier, where it was like a Sunday morning, and there were all kinds of people, hundreds of people running around in this big public area, a park or something, and a UFO came, and it sent this big beam of light down, and this one guy walked out like right out of War of the Worlds movie, you know. He walked out to it like this with his hands up like this, and the beam of light covered him all up, and he just disappeared. And the UFO hovered around there, and there were hundreds of people saw it, and they went scrambling, running around trying to find telephones to call everybody they knew, and then it flew away. And so that he got the report, he said, from their newspaper, and he sent one of their reporters out there right away, lickety split, jump in the car, go out there, talk to anybody you can see. So he gets out there and he's talking to all these people. They're trying to talk about what they saw, and the thing comes back when he was there, and it came back, and it hovered, and the big light came out, and then the guy was all of a sudden standing there, and the guy didn't remember anything, you know, didn't know anything had happened. He just was kind of baffled, and this guy wrote the story about it, and it was in the newspaper, and he told me about it, you know, and that was all. And I knew Dr. Zhenzhou Jing. Dr. Zhenzhou Jing was the head of the Science and Technology Division of the Chinese Academy of Social Science when I was over there at the State of the World Forum. So I was over there talking with her, and they were doing experiments in anti-gravity at the Science and Technology Committee, and also in psychokinetics, and also telepathy. That's what they were working on, and they were trying to figure out an alternative energy source at that point. And so that's why they were interested in the UFOs, because they were trying to figure out what their energy source was. And I didn't talk with her much after that. She wanted me to try to get a hold of Ted Turner because she knew that I knew him, and I knew Georgie Zimmer, the guy that owns all the Men's Warehouses, and she was trying to get them to chip in to finance putting together this study. And I kept saying, why don't you have the Chinese government pay for it? And she didn't trust them. She didn't trust the Chinese Communist Party. You know, she didn't like the Chinese Communist Party, and she didn't want to. I guess I shouldn't say this about her, but she didn't trust them, and so she was trying to get it funded privately, which says something to you, because that's kind of the same thing that happened here. You know, it happened in the United States. You know, is that these corporations, you know, the Skunk Works and, you know, Lockheed Martin and Rockwell and all these people, there's no doubt at all that these people are up to their elbows in this thing, you know, and they've got all kinds of access to the technology. They've been developing the technology, and they're outside of the normal channels of the chain of command, you know, which, you know, you can say good things and bad things about that, but it's peculiar. I mean, it's definitely peculiar to have people who are in the private, you know, industry making money for shareholders, you know, to have a monopoly control over this particular technology, you know, and they're the ones that are insisting about keeping everything super secret because they've got proprietary interests in this technology. And so that the general officers, they don't know when they're told something is top secret. They don't know where it comes from. They don't know how high up it goes, where the orders have come to keep it secret, but they probably run right back to those corporations who are protecting their proprietary interest, you know, and it's totally contrary to their national interest. So, you know, that this is a peculiar morass. It's not necessarily much more complicated than trying to figure out who killed Karen Silkwood, you know, at the private nuclear plant, or, you know, who's smuggling the cocaine, you know. But it's what it takes is a concentrated effort, professional, concentrated effort. You know, not wild speculation. You know, about, you know, oh, it's going to be some kind of a, you know, false flag attack, or, you know, or they're coming here to eat our children, or any of that stuff. You know, you have to go one step at a time and figure this thing out. And that's why Mark and I are here, is we're trying to talk about how citizens can responsibly. Yes. You know, reach out to talk with the beings themselves to find out what they want, because I mean they're at a whole other pay grade above whoever it is that thinks they're in charge down here on the planet. You know, I mean, these are the people that are in charge of deciding how much we're going to know.
It's true.
You know, so we're trying to coax them into telling us more.
Beautiful. Thanks.
I want to know if anybody on the panel has seen in the last month several strange tweets that came out of the Chinese National Space Agency about extraterrestrial intelligent life in our solar system that's not human. There's like 4 or 5 tweets that came from them. I keep responding going, why don't you have a damn press conference and tell us about it? Has anybody seen this?
No.
Oh, it's really strange. I don't know
Bob,
what's going
send them the next Zoom link.
Yeah.
on. Yeah, well, if they would, but of course they don't identify themselves. They're just CNSA press people that have been told to put this tweet out, and who knows what it means.
Haven't seen it at all.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
it's
on CNSA. You can
April
go look.
24th, 2021, with great ceremony, we announced the confirmation of intelligent life. End of sentence. That's it.
Oh,
okay.
And there are 4 more
Wow.
like that.
Come on, the Chinese are better at ceremony than that. You know, I mean,
Right.
we're all the flags and the 10,000 people all dancing in order here. Come on now.
That'll come next week. They're still getting the food ready.
That's right.
Tom
It's entertaining.
and Dave, you guys have been really quiet. Is there anything you guys want to bring up at this point? We might be starting to wind down.
Well, I don't want to rain on this parade, but we're seeing some momentum here. We're seeing some momentum here with the stories that have come out and with 60 Minutes and all that. And for the group or the faction, whoever they are, that want to keep this silent, that's all the more reason for them to slow this down and throw a monkey wrench into it. Because if we keep developing momentum, whoever these people are that don't want this information out, they're going to lose control of the situation. And it seems to me that they're powerful enough that they're not going to let that happen.
Well, we're going to
Or
see.
they used to be powerful enough.
Is this a case of is this possible, like, you know, corporations keep like corporate fraud retainer on the side? They always have like $50 million because they know they're going to break the rules. Is this a situation where there's already measures in place for gentlemen like you, Mr. Sheehan, coming down the line? Is there already measures in place to prevent you from getting any information? Do you think is it possible?
Well, you know, they've got 236 new federal judges that have all been appointed. You know, all scions of the Federalist Society. You know, you aren't going to get shit in discovery. You know, I mean, you can file cases until you're blue in the face, and you aren't going to get anybody. You know, they're not going to give you discovery about this stuff. You may not get bounced out on a 12B6 ruling. You know that the allegations just on their face, you know, even if they're proven, don't give you any cause of action. You got to figure out what the cause of action would be. But even if you get through a 12B6, you know, they're not going to give you discovery. You know, these judges are just going to ignore all your motions to compel and everything else. So I don't believe that the legal system is really very viable right now, you know, to get anything done by way of progressive change at all. And I've been at this for 50 years, and we've made more progress than most people, you know, by going through the judicial system. But I don't hold out any reasonable prospects for it right now. I mean, if in fact the Democrats were to bite the bullet and appoint 4 new justices to the Supreme Court, so that you've got a court up above there that is at least a neoliberal court instead of a reactionary court. You know, that there may be some chances, even though you'd have to fight your way through all the district court judges and courts of appeals to get to them. But until something dramatic happens like that, I wouldn't hold out any real hope for going through litigation, much less the Administrative Procedures Act, trying to beat up on some administrative agency because they're violating all the rules. You know, we're in a very difficult time right now. And so that, again, I echoing the same concerns you have, I don't know why this new phenomenon is starting. I don't place any credibility, at least at this point, in the fact that Donald Trump, you know, declassified all this stuff. I mean, he would have been all over Twitter with that if he had done something like that. I mean,
he was banned.
Well, no, I mean,
he has other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His daughter will tweet for him.
He'd be standing on the rooftops dropping.
But Danny, we can't even get the Kennedy assassination material declassified.
I know.
It's supposed to have been released already.
Well, there's a whole bunch of more documents that are supposed to come out this fall. But I don't know whether they're going to or not, but we'll see. We'll see about those.
Yeah. Now I have a question for everyone. What do we think is going to happen next? Obviously, in the last couple of days, Jeremy Corbell, assisted by George Knapp, released another piece of footage. Obviously, he claims that this is coming. I don't know if anyone here knows more about it, that it's coming from connections he had with the task force. So apparently someone with the task force is providing information to Corbell, because I mean, that was pretty dramatic footage, because with all the recording, sound recording and everything with it, there's a lot of detail. There's a great video of George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell breaking down all the technical data in that. And he says he's going to get more, or he has more, or he's about to get more. I'm starting to believe Jeremy every time he says, I'm going to release something else, or I'm getting more. He follows through with that. So I think we're going to get more there. Meanwhile, that goes on throughout, the end of this month. It's coming up on the end of here as it is of
June.
May, so then we're going to June, throughout June. And then in the end of June, if the DNI provides, a report to the Senate, which do we have any reason to really think they're not? I mean, everything suggests that that's on track to happen. Dan, you might know more about that.
Well, I got a promised call back to Randy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to call him by 9:30. So I've got.
Oh, okay. So you guys are going to go. Well,
yeah, I gotta go.
Anyhow, but I guess that's it. I mean, does anyone have any insider input on what we think we're getting, or we're just all?
I have a few.
As little as possible.
Yeah.
As little as possible.
Yeah.
I personally am of the belief that the ETs are showing themselves to the military on a daily basis because they want to. They have made a decision to press this issue, that they are here. And now it's interesting that the pilots are able to come forward and report what they see. And so I do anticipate that we will see more reports from the pilots.
Well,
and maybe one of the silver linings from them, even though it was underwhelming to us, that it will embolden more pilots to come forward.
Watch more podcast clips now on our YouTube channel. Go to Livewire Podcast Clips and watch more great podcast videos just like this one.